How avoidants treat the one that they truly love versus the one that is just a placeholder. What's going on, my beautiful people? This is your certified life and relationship coach, Coach Court. In today's video, we're going to visit that topic because I've seen a lot of YouTubers make this topic, and I just want to give my take on this. I did this topic 4 or 5 years ago, and I just want to revisit it with a little bit of an updated twist on it because I feel that sometimes things can change. You know, life is full of ebb and flow. Before I get into it, though, if you want my help personally, the quickest way to get into contact with me is through my website at www.fruitfulseeds.com. The very first one, which is the biggest one for me, is they ask for validation or recognition of their efforts. So if you have an avoidant, specifically a dismissive avoidant, and they get really frustrated because they're giving their effort, they're trying as hard as they can, they're showing up, they're communicating, they're initiating dates, and then they may slip up once or twice, and then when you call them out on that, they ask for a little bit of grace and a little bit of recognition that you're observing the things that they are doing and that they're truly trying their best. They don't get frustrated for the people who are the placeholder. They kind of just shrug it off like, I'm just not a texter. I just don't feel a need to be always in communication, or I don't feel the need to be around you all the time. They will make the effort for the person that they truly care about. Someone asked me about a man. They said, do men in particularly know exactly who they're looking for? Will they change for the person that they want to be with? And I will answer that when it comes to dismissive avoidant men, they absolutely will. They will make the effort. They will initiate the therapy and the counseling if need be. But this is only for the one that they see a real and healthy future with. The second thing they'll do is they'll share and they'll invite you into their personal space. What does that mean? Dismissive avoidance, from what I know and what I've seen from them, they tend to be extremely private. They don't like people in their space, in their business, and they especially don't like you coming into their space and moving things around. Or, for example, I had a client I was working with. The girlfriend came in and was upset because she didn't have her own personal drawer. He would always send her off with her stuff because he doesn't really want it there. And she thought that he was cheating at first until, we kind of realized that he was more on a dismissive avoidance side. And it's because it takes a long time for them to start to adjust and to be comfortable with changes. From what I know about avoidance, they typically don't like changes rapidly. They have to do things slowly. They like predictability. They like consistency. And I know people in the comments are going to say, well, maybe they should give it to you. That's just how they are. That's their wound. The third thing that you'll recognize from them is they'll share their resources. Once again, they can be very hoarding of their resources because they had to grow up earlier than other people. So they had to mature and they had to, go out and hunt for their food and their resources. So they don't share that very easily. When they do that for you, that's how you know that they actually care about you. You will see a lot of avoidants who will always go Dutch on dates. They won't be the one to always pay for all the dates and the outings. They will actually have a conversation about it. The fourth thing that you'll see that they are consistent with their communication. We talked about this before. They're consistent with texting, especially if this is something that is one of your love languages. If you tell them, hey, I just really like having, conversations throughout the day. I like sharing my ideas with my boyfriend or girlfriend. I like being able to have them there to just have this companionship with, and they'll make efforts. I've seen guys literally set reminders in their phone to reach out to their girlfriend every morning and every night. And I know that sounds like it might be a little bit pathetic, but if it's not something that's in the front of their mind, if it's not about their business or their work or whatever hobby that they're deeply into, they unfortunately have the tendency to be more self-centered. They don't see things that aren't right in front of their face. And one of the reasons is because they don't require that themselves. They don't desire to be texted every morning, good morning, and every night, good night. They don't desire to have someone questioning what they're doing. How's their work day going? They just don't operate like that. They're like someone who has a full stomach when they're in a relationship, but they don't realize that other people, especially anxious, preoccupied people, they desire conversation. They desire other things to fill their belly. Their emotional love tank gets empty quicker. For an avoidant, it's not necessarily that way. Someone who desires more of that companionship in their relationship needs communication every 2-3 days, maybe even daily, especially if you're an anxious preoccupied. And who are we kidding? If you're an anxious person, you probably need it every hour. Unfortunately, if you're trying to pursue a relationship with someone who's a dismissive avoidant, and you know this is the facts, they tell you this, or you checked enough boxes to see that that's the case, you have to know the type of person that you're in a relationship with. And you can't expect a person that, let's say that someone has a disability, maybe they may be wheelchair bound, you know, not to ask them to go for a hike with you. You know, me and my wife was just down in Arizona last month, and that I kind of thought about that analogy. You know, a dismissive avoidant is like asking someone to do something that takes a lot of rehab and willpower and mindfulness and strength to change. So if you get frustrated with them because they're not able to do it right away and meet your emotional needs, just know that you're asking them to do something that's very difficult. Now, if you met them on a dating app, or if they were the one pursuing you, I can understand your frustration, because like, why even get in the arena if you're not ready to perform? Is because they have that appetite when they're outside of that relationship, but when they're in a relationship is when they feel like, all right, I can kind of kick my shoes off and lay back for a little bit until someone gives them a wake up call. And the last one that I see is they'll take accountability. Now, avoidance, I don't know if it's the toxic shame that they feel. I don't know if it's because they don't like having a mirror put in front of them about the things that they're doing wrong or how they're showing up. But the person that they really care about, they'll start taking accountability. They'll start coming back and saying, you know what, I was in the wrong on that. You know, I took some time to think, and I see where you're coming from. You know, they may not even exclusively say the words, I'm sorry, but you will see that they're making an effort to try to get you to feel comfortable and understand that you're not the only one in this relationship that does things wrong. I think dismissive avoidants are people who are, from what I've seen, pretty loyal. Once they pick their friends, once they pick their relationships, they stay with that person for a while. Now, this could be different for people who have other mental health issues going on. Like, this is the attachment style theory that I'm focusing on. And what the theory says is, because avoidants are people who were pretty neglected emotionally when they were kids, or weren't really given hugs or shown that physical affection as a kid, they show up in relationships kind of like an emotional toddler or emotional infant. And once they have more emotionally intact relationships, they can learn and they can heal and they can be able to grow up that inner child that doesn't know how to show up in adult relationships. Thank you guys for joining my discussion again today. And always remember, when you go and be loved, you'll never have to find it. God bless.